Hello, and welcome to another Fascinator episode from Hat Collecting. On the talk show, we take a big picture look at the guest's life and path. Here, we take a magnifying glass and we learn about something more specific. I am your host, Lacey Artemis, and it is time to get fascinated. I am joined today by Jessica Okonski, who is a wedding photographer turned woodworker and spent the majority of the pandemic learning to make things out of wood. And she's been so kind to join us today to teach us a little bit about that. So thank you so much for joining today, Jessica.
Oh, you're very welcome. Thank you for having me.
Yes, I discovered you kind of by accident. I think somebody shared the blog TO article about you or something like that, and it's like, wow, this sounds really cool. It's like perfect for this project. So,
What, really, right? It was mind blowing. Photography,
yeah,
woodworking.
yeah. Well, I mean, that's kind of the spirit of this show is just the that no one does just one thing, and all of us tend to have some unrelated different interests and hobbies. So I like to explore those a bit more. Yeah. So the question I always start with on this show, fittingly by the name, is what do you think or what do you feel is the most fascinating about the process of woodworking or making things out of wood?
The most fascinating part is actually watching the wood transform. Because when I get the blocks of wood, they're just rough bits. They look like nothing. They're just rectangular, rough blocks of walnut or maple or ash. And to slowly start jointing them down or planing them down to get like those beautiful clean pieces of lumber that you can like buy at the store, and then slowly turn that into a bowl or a chair leg or a door or anything is just like it's actually really like the best part, because you get to start seeing the grain a little bit more, and then you start putting it together and you're like, oh my god, it's gonna look so beautiful, I'm gonna joint it like this, it's gonna be great. And like that's really the most exciting part, because like at first you kind of look at this like how is this going to turn into anything, because it's just nothing, and then it's really great. Like it's like such a magical little moment to all of a sudden like see a shape appear out of the wood.
Very cool. And how long, like sort of on average, does that process of like planing it down or transforming it from the block to the usable piece?
Ooh, it really kind of depends on how long the piece is. So like the hardest piece I made, or like the longest piece that I made, was actually this really large Hutch TV custom console thing. So it had to be about like 60 inches in length. Like it was a really long thing. So that whole board, to like joint it down and plane it down, and it's heavy, it's so heavy. So those tend to take about like the full day just to kind of get them cleaned down to the piece that I need to work with, let alone if you're making a huge piece and then like it has so many different moving parts. So a lot of the jointing and planing can sometimes take about a day or two, just to clean it down before you even start cutting it to pieces that you need to use, like a drawer bit or a leg bit or a brace bit or something like that. Like it could be a long process, and just the shop is covered. It's just covered and chips everywhere.
And as I would guess that that's probably somewhat of like a meditative process if it sort of takes that long to like do one thing. Do you listen to like a lot of like audiobooks or podcasts while you work
Big
or
on
music?
podcasts. I listen to a lot of True Crime Obsessed. I love those two. They're hilarious, and I just feel like I have like buddies around just joking when I'm doing all that. So they're my favorite to listen to, and I think I've listened. They have series on, like I'm a Patreon member. I do like I support them. So I've listened to like their series on The Vow, and The Jinx, like pretty much on repeat. I could literally tell you they're going to say next, and it's just very comforting as you're focused on just feeding wood through the machine to clean it up. So those are my favorite. And then sometimes it's music, but most of the time it's a lot of podcasts.
Very cool. Yeah, coming into woodworking, knowing very little about it, were there any preconceptions that you had about the process or what were kind of expecting that were surprisingly wrong for you?
There was a few different ones. When I started with wood turning first before I turned to like building furniture. So like one of the misconceptions I had when it came to the turning was that like I wouldn't be able to create like as beautiful items as I saw other people creating. And it's actually a really fast learning process with turning. Like you could vary the simple shapes, the turns and stuff. Like it's actually pretty quick to uptake or take it up when it comes to doing that. So that was like when I was like, oh, look what I made. I made this like beautiful thing all of a sudden, like I turned this amazing bowl, or I glued this all together, and like it's mesmerizing that it all worked the way I thought it was going to work. When it came to furniture building, I think one of the misconceptions I had was that people would laugh at me. I know, like really weird, because like it's a shop where my shop is. There's a lot of other woodworkers there, and they're all men. There's no woman building in that warehouse and the other shops. So I thought they would all like be like, "Well, what are you doing in there? Oh, that's nice. That's cute." And then you're like trying woodworking, like just pat. But actually, they were always like so helpful, and they were always interested in coming by. Like, so what are you building now? Like, how's it going? Do you need any help? Like, what would you like to do? Like, I had this like idea that they would not welcome me, but they were actually very welcoming. So like I used to keep the doors shut. Now I kind of keep my shop open so that people can kind of drop by and take a look. And, some actually purchased pieces from me. So it was really nice to kind of have that alleviated, like thinking that everyone would laugh. But no, I think that was probably the biggest one, is that I thought people would be like, what are you doing now? Why are you doing this? I just want to do it.
Yeah. I think that's one of the top reasons why a lot of people don't want to sort of try starting new things, is because everyone assumes that they're just going to be terrible and embarrassing, and everyone's going to laugh. But like there's, I've heard this phrase, like sucking is the first step to being good at something.
Yeah.
Like you have to be bad before you can be good. So you just have to actually stick with it. So yeah, it's awesome that you did that. Are there any different, or are there many different methods or tools involved, and are some of them more easy to use than others?
There are so many different methods when it comes to doing, especially when it comes to joinery for furniture. There are so many different ways that you can join your pieces together, your carcasses together, your legs together. And it could be a little overwhelming to try and be like, okay, I just want to be able to put this, peg into this leg and like have a brace or something. And someone can say like, well, you could do it this way, or you can use this machine, or you can get this jig, or you can get this. And you're like, just tell me how to put it in. Like, I just wanted to know how to do this. So like, there's so many different methods. And even if you go onto YouTube and just try and search, joining or something like that, you'll get a plethora of different methods, from just doing it by hand or using simple chisels and hammers, where you can get beautiful joinery just from that. Obviously, it takes a lot longer. Or you can build your own jigs so that you can use your table saw, or you can use a router or a bandsaw even. Like there's so many different ways using just the tools that maybe not everyone has access to. There's a lot of different ways to manipulate things so that you're like, what, I want to do this, but I only have a chop saw. I can build something for that, or you can get a little handy tool for that, and it'll start making like little cuts or dovetails or something for you, just by a different method. Like there's so many, like the techniques are endless. I mean, woodworking has been around for a long time, so like people have figured out some amazing things when it comes to jointing or planing or putting pieces together without even glue or nails. Like they've just found a way, and it's really spectacular, and kind of like, wow, how am I supposed to do all this? Just try and focus on one and perfecting it, and then you can move on.
Yeah, for sure. So I guess a little bit of a follow-up there. So you said there's all these different kinds of tools. If you were to like specialize in like a specific, like say for instance, you only made furniture, would there be certain tools that you would definitely use and certain tools that you wouldn't use for that, or would you kind of be able to use any tool for anything?
Just use any tool for anything. I mean, like there's certain machines that are now out there, or tools that are out there that make doing perfect joinery just as simple as snapping a finger. Like there's a lot of people who have specialized in making sure that if you want a perfect dovetail or box joint or anything like that, like just get this, you know, tool or machine and it'll be perfect every time. Like you just do it with your eyes closed. I mean, I wouldn't recommend that, but like it would be very simple. But you can really use any tool to create stuff. I mean, if there's one tool that I wouldn't give up, I guess, like in terms of making furniture, I'd probably say the router, and obviously a table saw. Like those are the two that I'm like, this is how we can make it work. And with this machine and this machine, I can make fine furniture and it'll be like really beautiful, and look like I used millions of dollars of tools. But yeah, I mean, in England, I believe it's like England or like in Europe, a lot of people make furniture just using a router. Like pretty much that's it. Like they just have different bits and they can make a whole piece just using a router, which I thought was amazing. I'm like, oh, that's a lot of that's a lot of work.
So when I do these Fascinator episodes, usually through just the course of the conversation, questions will occur to me that are not on the list that I kind of come up with beforehand. One that just occurred to me. So back when I used to, back in my kind of minimum wage days when I was just out of high school and stuff, I remember I worked at like a restaurant. I would often come home smelling like, grease. Do you ever find like your clothes smell like sawdust or anything like that?
They do. They will smell like sawdust. I mean, thankfully, it's pretty easy to kind of escape that. The most is if I'm using tung oil or Danish oil when I'm covering the wood or like protecting the wood after it's finished. That will reek for a while. Sometimes it's like when you're chopping onions and like no matter how much you wash your hands, you're like, I still smell it there. It's like, God. So that's the one that's the worst in terms of sticking to you. But I think that even though I use this wood a lot, walnut is pretty hard. Walnut's actually kind of slightly toxic of a wood, yeah. So when I'm standing or using that one, I find like I have the most trouble breathing, and it tends to stick to me a lot more. And I'm just like, oh God, I feel dirty.
That's very interesting. I'm glad I thought of that.
Exactly.
I mean, that's the point. It's like a mixture of like questions that kind of occur to me beforehand, and then what sort of comes up naturally in the interview. Yeah, so I guess you sort of touched on this a bit, but it's still on the list of questions here, so I'm going to still ask it. Are there people who tend to specialize in more specific, like maybe like furniture versus, I'm not sure what else there would be, or do most woodworkers kind of still do a bit of a variety?
I would say most woodworkers tend to specialize in kind of the one area that they like to do. So as I mentioned, like where my shop is, there's a lot of different woodworkers that are around. So there's a lovely guy who has his shop right across from me. He specializes in wood-made dungeon furniture. I know, right? So Master R's dungeon furniture. He's got it. So he makes just that, and then on the shop adjacent to him, right next, like kind of behind, he specializes in custom doors mostly. Like he makes these elaborate front doors or side doors or whatever you need like a door for. Like he makes these really crazy doors. Right next to him is someone who specializes just in bowls. Like he really likes making salad bowls, and small bowls and cutting boards. And then next to him is a guy who also does a lot of turning, but he normally likes pens and like duck calls and stuff like that. Like everyone specializes in a lot of just kind of something in their element, I guess you can say. And then even if it's furniture, there's people that specialize in really fine furniture making, like everything from scratch. And then there's people who are specializing in like kind of more rustic, refurbished type of woodworking, where it's like barn doors and beams and turning that into different like mantles or chairs or like huge tables and like kind of rustic. So like everyone kind of finds their niche that they like to do. I still kind of feel like I'm finding my like perfect niche that I like to do. I lean more towards furniture nowadays than I did like turning bowls, but yeah, I'm still kind of finding it, but a lot of people kind of start sticking to one thing and kind of make that work for them.
I mean, that makes sense.
Especially with so many different methods, your mind would go crazy.
Yeah. So I don't know if this is something that you can answer, but again, it just kind of occurred to me. Do you have like a favorite thing that you've made and a least favorite thing that you've made?
Ooh, favorite thing that I've made. It's kind of two. The favorite things that I've made have like my woven benches. I really like making those. I really think they're like so cool that, that I'm making these cool benches. And the huge TV console thing. That one I was really proud of because it was one of my like first bigger pieces that I made. So I was so happy with the way he turned out. Um, and least favorite have been a few like bowls and candlesticks where I'm just like, well, this was a cool shape idea, but really this doesn't look so great. It just looks too like it's too simple. It doesn't look like anything. But yeah, I think like a lot of the furniture pieces have been kind of my favorite ones. Just because maybe because they were just such a massive project, and I just felt so proud that I did it. That someone like who wasn't a woodworker over just a year ago is now, making these really cool pieces that I thought only, fine furnishing gentlemen somewhere in their backwoods shop were making. So those are kind of my favorites, those big accomplishments and benchmarks, I guess.
Yeah, that's very cool. I know when we spoke on the phone to kind of organize this interview, I had mentioned that something I'm planning to do with this project, with this show, is to kind of go and actually do some hands-on things and learn some new skills or try new things myself. And so, yeah, woodworking is a thing I've certainly never done before. I am definitely curious to try it myself, and perhaps my audience will eventually get to see me go through that and live vicariously through me. And you're certainly doing a good job of making me more like eager about it. So,
It, it's really, I mean, like, it's really, I wouldn't say like it's easy, but like it's not as hard as people think it is. I think that's kind of, I mean, like going back to misconceptions, like I guess that's one too. Like it's really not as hard as you think it is. Like it's pretty straightforward to make a simple piece of furniture or even just get started on turning on the lathe, which is why I started like beginners classes for people, so that people can just kind of come and get a very easy intro course, get a feel for it, and like, start making something so that they can like see what it's like to have the wood become a block of nothing to something really beautifully shaped just by them. So I'm excited to have those classes, and I feel like people walk away really excited and happy with their piece when they leave. So those have been really good.
that's very cool. Yeah, I'll get you to share a little bit more about those in a moment. Yeah, so again, some of these questions are feeling a bit redundant now, but I'm gonna stick with them anyways. I can always edit stuff out. What would you say, I guess, kind of in general, is your favorite aspect of woodworking?
Um, the favorite aspect, much like seeing it come to life, I think kind of the favorite aspect besides that is just the designing process of it all, like just it all coming together. I like like, I mean, I'm a creator through and through. Like I went to school for painting, so like I was, yeah, I know, right? Like everything I've ever done in terms of work or what I wanted to do has always been creating something. It's never really falling into a specific, like I have to be painting or I have to be drawing. It's like just give me something where I can create something and I'm happy. So with woodworking, it's been a lot more of a hands-on type of creation that I've done. Like photography, you have the camera and it's all just in your mind's eye. So to have something from my mind's eye that I literally build and shape has been really rewarding. Like it's been really exciting and fun to have that type of expression come out. Like I think that's been really great.
I can definitely relate to that. I feel kind of a similar thing with this project. It's kind of the culmination of a lot of things that I've done or attempted to do in the past, and kind of, again, started as a vision, and the fact I've been able to kind of realize that vision bit by bit is really, yeah, I'm very proud of that. So, yeah, so the kind of the last question here, I like to usually ask if people are interested to like kind of try it themselves or get involved. Where can they kind of start? So I guess it could be two parts. It could be like, talk a little bit more or share information about the classes that you do, or also if there's any like organizations or websites or any other kind of resources that you maybe that helped you at the beginning, that you can kind of share for the audience.
Sure. So the classes that I have, they're beginner turning classes. So if you ever wanted to make a bowl or a plate, cups, wooden stuff on a lathe, they're very basic classes, which anyone, like, you don't have to have touched a lathe ever in your life, can come in and learn, because it's really just getting used to the feel of a tool against a very fast spinning object. Other than that, the shaping and the cutting is just up to you. So I feel like having classes like that, just those simple beginner classes, like, you'll learn a lot in just a day. Like, it's really fun. You get to make a couple pieces so that you're not walking away empty-handed. You feel like you're an amazing wood turner at the end of the class, because we cover safety and basics and tooling, and like, you're ready to go from there. Like, you could get your own little tiny lathe, which are very affordable nowadays, like just small, like they'll fit on your nightstand size lathe. So you can start making very small objects very easily after learning some of the basics just on your own. And in terms of resources, I found YouTube really resourceful. I mean, I feel like everybody can find YouTube very resourceful, for different methods and how-tos and tricks. I'm in a unique position where I had a lot of people around me who know stuff. So if I had a question, I could easily just walk over and be like, hey, like, I'm trying to do this. My design in my head is this. Is that feasible? Or am I just like imagining things that wood can't do? And everyone's like, you totally do it. Like, yeah, you just go here and you do that, and you can try this way and try that way. And I'll be like, okay, great. So I was very lucky that there's people around that I could ask to do that. And like, if you are interested in woodworking or starting in woodworking, I mean, Harborfront has good classes as well. Lee Valley does classes. I do classes. I mean, like, you could find a lot of people offering nice basic courses. My courses are just 2 people. So you have your own lathe, and it's pretty much almost one-on-one, because it's just me splitting my attention between 2 students. So it's a very easy and comfortable environment because it's so small. I know larger classes, some people are like, I don't know, one instructor I went for and it was great. But like, however you like to learn, there's so many resources to get you started. And really, like, the last bit of advice really is just do it. just do it. Just get anything. You can just do it. Carving can be done at home. You can just sit there whittling if you need to.
My mom does that. My mom makes birds out of wood. Little, like,
Amazing.
bird sculptures. Yeah, they're cute. So can the information on your classes, is that found on your website?
Yes. So you
Okay.
can go to www.thisladywood.com, and you can just click on workshops. I have 2 coming up in August, on the 15th and the 22nd, which are 1 full day classes. And I actually have a larger one in September, which is actually a 3-day evening course where you actually build a woven bench with me from scratch. So you turn the legs, you glue it up, screw it in, nail it, and then we start weaving on the 3rd day. So you can actually build a bench. So that one's a bit longer of a process, but people have been expressing interest in building furniture and not just bowls. So we have to start offering some beginners furniture making.
Yeah, for sure. And your others, like, I'm guessing your social media stuff is like linked from your website as well. I just
Yes.
want to make sure I cover all the bases.
So Instagram is at This Lady Wood. Facebook, This Lady Wood. Everything is This Lady Wood. I would do all those.
Yeah. And just for people who maybe are only listening, that's wood, WOOD, not WOULD. It's a pun.
It is a pun. I'm a punny
And
person.
I am 100% all for puns. So yeah, no argument here. As for us, you can find hat collecting online at hatcollecting.com and at hat collecting on social media. You can find me online at artemiscreates.com and patreon.com/artemiscreates. And please like and subscribe and tell your friends about the show to help the show grow and keep the fascination flowing. Until next time, look forward to your next fascination.
Hi, I'm Jessica Okonski from This Lady Wood, and you've been fascinated.